Okay, so I think I'm live, and of course I forgot to Twitter about it. And so I have to go ahead and do that. I guess dead air is okay, right? For a little while. Copy video roll. Hang on a second. For a few minutes. Okay, so we have a video that was done yesterday, and Laurie stopped in and talked to Otangelo, and I got to get to the part where he talks to Tony, but him talking to Otangelo was kind of significant, and I thought I would play this part here first, out of order, which I think is pretty significant. We're talking about epistemic foundations, and the Christians constantly telling us that we have no foundation for our morality or for our beliefs and naturalism and all of that, which I think is just complete rubbish. And I'm going to try to explain a little bit about it, but I kind of like this part.
Yeah, I don't ask those kind of questions. Those questions to me, when you're talking about those things, don't make sense to me. It's how. It's not why, it's how. How did these things get here? That's what science says. You can ask why all you want. And, it's like the little kid asking why. Well, the correct answer is never mind, go to bed.
There it is. And that is basically an epistemic foundation that all humans have as a default, and every animal has, and every human has had in the history of mankind. As adults, how we got here, basically starting out from babies, which we understand, we have a broad network of knowledge, things that we know to be real, things that allow us to feed ourselves, take care of our kids, tuck our kids in bed, or tell our kids to shut the fuck up and go to bed. Basically, we've been doing this for ages. Raccoons do not need an epistemic foundation for their morality, and they do have a morality. They'll go after each other and growl and posture, but they very seldom ever draw blood or ever get into a fight. And this is where naturalism leads. Naturalism leads you to understand that you have an essence, a biology. What you are is an organism, and you have certain behaviors, certain things that will drive you or motivate you. And we trust all other humans to pretty much have this same behavior. And for the most part, we all get along. I guess right now they're trying to burn down Washington D.C. and Washington State, but and maybe a little Oregon. But I mean, for the most part, we get along, and we know what our epistemic foundations are. It's the reality of me being able to get up in the morning, put my pants on, get some coffee, and go to work or whatever I have to do. And we don't need to go any deeper than that. And that's kind of what Laurie was saying when you asked too many why questions. So anyway, I think he came in right around here.
Honestly, Otangelo, I've been watching you guys, and I've been interested in this whole group for quite a long time. And this is the first time I've ever actually spoken to anybody online or anybody in your group. And I've been watching for well over a year, probably. So it's kind of funny. I just interested in the subject. I've been following a lot of you guys for quite some time. And I just enjoy listening to the debates and the back and forths, and it's just interesting to me. That's all.
So how has that time that you're listening to our group modified your views in regards of origins?
Actually, there's been a lot of people. Like I said, I've listened to lots and lots and lots of debates. I think it's actually strengthened my conviction in a lot of ways. because I listen to both sides. I mean, I hear the arguments, and I mean, my way of thinking is clearly different from a theist. I mean, it's just, you can just see it. You know, I'm very open-minded, and I think atheists tend to be that way. You know, nothing's impossible. I certainly, I mean, you know, in my opinion, sure, there could be a God.
Yeah,
I think it's very unlikely.
You'll move ahead here a little bit.
Am I correct on that? Do you agree with that?
This is also a very important point, Laurie, which I see by many atheists. They have never elaborated a sophisticated or an adequate epistemological framework upon which to investigate origins. And scientism or verificationism or the requirement to provide objective or an objective demonstration of God's existence, this is a flawed approach, because we...
Okay, that's the claim that most atheists have never considered their epistemic foundations. May be true for like 90% of us. 10% of us most certainly have gone a little bit further, looked at philosophy. I don't find their philosophy compelling. I don't find that they know anything about philosophy at all. Praise That I Am had a bit on his channel the other day where he had this syllogism, presuppositional syllogism, and it made no sense at all. It looked like 7th grade philosophy, and I showed it to a professor of philosophy, and him and I talked about it, and he thought it was just completely ridiculous to even offer this. And he pointed out that there are volumes and volumes written on this subject, and that go much deeper than these silly little presup syllogisms that they come out with. Anyway, so Otangelo is basically trying to tell him that, oh, you haven't really thought about it. You haven't thought about your epistemology. You haven't grounded your naturalism. Well, the truth of the matter is that all Christians, all believers, and all non-believers have all grounded their naturalism. If we had not, we would not be alive. We would not be able to feed ourselves, okay? And this is what happens, currently. We ground our naturalism, and I think he gets in the foundations here.
That is something which I see very often. When I go to a chat room of atheists and they discuss why they became atheists, in most cases, I would say maybe 90%, they will go down that line of reasoning. I was a Christian and I did read the Bible, and then I started to see discrepancies and difficulties and contradictions and things that sound absurd to me. And then...
Yeah, basically people grow up. And when they grow up and they've been given this biblical mythology, like when I was between 6 and 8, I think my mom was taking me to a Presbyterian church, to a Sunday school. And I saw, the Noah's Ark story and all of that stuff. At the same time, I was starting to read science. And by the time I was 8 years old, I grew out of it. I mean, it didn't make any sense to me. It's like, why are we believing in these mythical stories? And why do we believe there's this thing in the sky that is somehow intervening in our lives when I have absolutely no evidence that there's any intervention at all, currently, today, right? And as an 8-year-old, I could see through that. And that's roughly when I became an atheist. And there was no point, I mean, a child, Christ almighty, you could hardly call me a Christian. I was given a story by my mother, who I trusted up to that point. After that point, I only trusted her to bake cookies for me. But I was given a story, and if that's all a kid knows. And then they grow up, go to college, and start checking out some of the facts, particularly about geology. And you can see that this young Earth bullshit is bullshit. It isn't compelling. Let's see, where do we go here? We go to bed. I'm not sure what's happening at 34. Let's check it out.
They have no good reasoning to believe that the material world is all there is, because they have...
No, we all have good reasoning, Otangelo, to believe that the material world is. Okay, all that it is? Well, okay. that's where you get into your 7th grade philosophy and you start asking the how and why questions. I mean, you start looking for metaphysical answers to questions that only physicists should be answering. That's your choice. Don't put that on us.
I have never investigated that alternative in a sophisticated manner.
Okay, so they were Christians, they were raised Christians, and they never investigated in a sophisticated manner. What is that sophisticated manner? For Otangelo, apparently it's looking at molecular biology, but we'll get into that a little bit here. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, kids go to bed, and then we have...
There are two.
Okay, here it is.
Science, Laurie, science makes two kinds of questions. One is the operational science, which tries to understand how things work. They investigate something in molecular biochemistry, and they see a protein, and they will try to find out how does that protein work and what is its function. That is related to operational science, and based on that, we can make predictions and apply the scientific method and so forth. Now, historical sciences, they ask a different question. They ask, how did things come to exist? Like evolutionary biology, history, geology, paleontology, astrophysics, astronomy, all these kind of scientific investigation.
Okay, there we have it. So we have the observational, what we know about chemistry, what we know about molecular biology today. And that's where Anthony Pudding Brain Maurice, when I was trying to have a conversation with that asshole on Smoky Saints channel, or Stinky Snake, I asked him about a seed. Now, when a seed is a very, very simple cellular, or one cell basically, that develops into an oak tree. Okay, and he wanted to go right away to, oh, where does the seed come from? Well, it doesn't fucking matter. Okay, we're talking about observational science. We know that we have one cell that turns into human beings or elephants or oak trees or whatever, and that we can observe. There is nothing supernatural going on. This is entirely deterministic chemistry that we can investigate to no end, and that's what all the papers are about. We're investigating what is happening currently in the world around us. And from that, we can decide. Like, for instance, I know that my son's car is up there in the garage right now. And I can look back, and now I can do some historical science. And I can go back and I can figure out what I know about how that car got in the garage. And I remember, memory is really important for human beings to know things. I remember him driving home from his brother's place and opening the garage door, putting the car in the garage. So now I've done a little bit of historical science, right? I mean, we can go back. I can go all the way back to last Sunday, and I can tell you what I pretty much think happened in the world around me. I can check the news. I can check sources. I mean, we can make projections. Nowhere in that last week have I had any evidence of any divine interference at all. Nowhere today. Nowhere in anything we ever investigate in a laboratory has there ever been any non-deterministic, divine, supernatural interference that we can actually put in a lab and investigate. So that's how we do historical science. So we go a little bit back and we go a little bit further. And in paleontology, genetics, geology, all of that, we have spent years, hundreds of thousands, millions of man years investigating and putting together that story. Now we do assume, and we have faith that the way things are happening right now is how they happened in the past, right? I assume that the way my son's car got in the garage is he drove it there, because I have no evidence of any supernatural being ever taking my son's BMW out or Audi out for a spin, right? So why would I ever go there? Why would I believe that? There has to be something else. a whole lot of evidence in order to get me to start believing in these kinds of things. So we're going back, and we go all the way back. We look at our common ancestors as mammals, and we go further, and we go to the Cambrian, and we go back to making projections about how eukaryotic cells happen. And that's where it gets fuzzy. And now they say, you have to tell us how this happened, how that happened. Fuck, we do. We don't know. We're trying to figure it out. You have to tell us. Well, that's why we're working on it. We're trying to tell you. We can't right now. You know, we spent 70 years on it, and we're going to spend another 70 or maybe 170 years trying to figure out what those mechanisms are. But we're not going to figure them out by saying, oh, God must have done it here or God must have done it there. We're going to do our damn best to figure it out based on what we know is happening today. And that is called methodological naturalism. Basically, it's what science uses to investigate things. At no point should we be saying something supernatural happened or magic happened here. I mean, they like to show that little joke on the blackboard where the guy's got all these steps and he has magic happened here on step 2. It's exactly what they do. It's what they want us to do. They want us to go back and say, oh my God, we can't figure out how this happened. It's so complicated. Magic happened here. I mean, this is ridiculous. And they keep accusing us of being, of not doing our thinking. And I mean, they are not thinking well themselves. Now, it is possible that we'll find something currently in the lab, and we'll be able to look at it and we'll say, oh my God, this is fossil evidence of a supernatural occurrence. We have finally figured out, we've covered all the possibilities for abiogenesis, every single one of them. Say it's 500 years in the future, and we have exhausted everything. We've learned so much about chemistry, and we've learned so much about the prebiotic earth. We know exactly where everything was. We know where every pool of water was. We know where every sulfur deposit was, every volcano. We have figured it all out with our computers, and we have determined that it is impossible. Now, that would be fossil evidence. But in order to get there, we would have to do exactly the kind of research that we're doing today, looking into every single possibility for abiogenesis and putting fuck brains, Maurice. Yes, that involves controlled laboratory experiments with purified reagents and protocols and exacting experimental procedures so that we can reproduce what we found. And that's how it's going to be done. I don't know what else to tell you. Abiogenesis research is looking into your situation as well as the purely naturalistic causation situation. I mean, the answer is going to be, it's going to arrive in the same manner, right? Let's see what else we got here. Nothing good ever came. Okay, all the answers, more sense. Okay, it's H versus O. Did I already do this?
Now, you have to find out first what makes more sense. How can we explain our existence and origins better, in a better manner? What is the evidence? How is the evidence better adequately explained?
Okay, how am I going to explain my son's car in the garage? What makes more sense? That God drove it in there, Jesus drove it in there, or my son drove it in there? It is that fucking simple, boys and girls. It is that simple.
Well, I have a completely different view. Like I said, I mean, you look at the history of science and just all of what we've done to study the universe. Take a look at the universe. I mean, basically, it's not all perfect science, but we've got it all the way back to the Big Bang. I mean, we don't know what happened before that, of course. You can place your God there. I mean, I certainly think that, what's past.
Yeah, please, at least place it there. I mean, if you want to just call it a day and quit picking on evolution and biology and molecular biology and pretending that you fuckers know something about it, just put it there. God splatted the universe down in the big expansion. I don't like the Big Bang, okay? And it naturally made us. I mean, what is the problem with that? Old Earth creationism. You know, we could call it a day and we could get along a lot better.
Ask the Big Bang what created the Big Bang. If you want to place your God there, by all means. I mean, I wouldn't say that that's impossible. That's
okay. Just a few more things here. Let's see.
What makes most people agnostic, because we don't have all the answers.
Yeah,
But,
no, we don't have absolute answers. We don't have any answers in an absolute sense in regards of what there is beyond the universe. We do not have absolute answers in regards of the starting point of the universe. We do not have any answers in an absolute term whatsoever in regards of history, especially in regards of history of the living whatsoever. That's why I said we do not.
Okay, we don't have any absolute answers right now. And there are people that have sort of proven, I think Yaki was one of them, that we're never going to have absolute answers of the historical beginnings of the universe. And I don't understand why they keep asking us, why Otangelo says, Michael, you have to tell me how this happened. You have to tell me how the smallest bacteria that is alive today could suddenly have popped out 4.2 billion years ago. That's what fucking happened anyway. But, and then, let's see, whatever. We have nothing good ever came of syllogisms.
I disagree with you, Laurie, because I have a long list of syllogisms where I start with positive evidence, with a premise, with one or two premises.
Yeah, syllogisms are for beginning logic class. What you put in those syllogisms is called philosophy, and it is a big fucking field. And I think it's kind of beyond most of you Christians to actually tackle. You don't seem to have a clue. You don't seem to have spent as much time as I have reading books on epistemology one after another and watching them go this way and that way and this way and that way and going in circles and never coming to a conclusion. So your premises and your syllogisms do not impress me. They're pretty much useless. Anyway, I think that's about as far as I got. I was hoping Otangelo would stop in for a little talk about methodological naturalism. I ground my naturalism in first locally what is around me, and that's where we all start. That's where we all live our lives. That is currently what happens. We have this memory thing, and we have other human beings. We have babies. We can look at babies. We can project back that far in our history, and we can figure out how we came to know things. And there's a whole field about how babies come to know things. It's pretty interesting. There was a guy, Marvin Minsky, passed away recently. I understand he got himself into some Me Too trouble, but Marvin Minsky was a genius. And he wrote some books about how brains acquire knowledge about basically about object reality and how reality works and how the natural world works around us. The picture I had for the icon on this thing was of a forest, and that's where we all started out, and that's where we all learned what we know, basically popping up as babies and acquiring this knowledge of how the natural world works. That is our epistemic foundation. Our moral foundation is built into how we were raised by our parents and our community, and combined with our biology. We do not like violence. We abhor it. We actually get our morality from our sense of smell, oddly enough. Things that stink, basically, are immoral to us, and we always say, oh, that stinks, or Stinky Snake calls us trash clowns because trash is bad, that sort of thing. I mean, it's all involved in our olfactory system, our limbic system. We are built to be moral animals. We don't need to ground it any further than we know what is right and wrong. basically. You could say we know it in our hearts, that sort of thing. But anyway, I didn't want this to go any longer than 20 minutes, and I think it may have. Hi, Molecular Alchemy. Nice of you to show up now. Anyway, I'm going to end this. Hopefully, Otangelo will get back to me, and he and I can discuss this later on today. So far, goodbye. I hope I made some sense about grounding naturalism in what is all currently happening around you today, how you feed yourself. Later, guys.